Hello to everyone joining the EDC conference this week in Canada and across the world. My name is Sam Ellis. I'm a senior lecturer in academic development at Glasgow Caledonian University, and I'm also vice convener of SHED, the Scottish Higher Education Developers. In many ways, we are your Scottish counterparts, and this video is a virtual handshake to you all. In it, I'm going to propose that time in the shed, feeling part of a Scotland-wide community of peers, in other words, makes a vital contribution to the well-being of our educational developers.
Every November, members of SHED meet for an annual residential. This is fairly easy to organise and for people to attend because of Scotland's relatively small size and because we hold it over 2 days at the end of a week. In November 2018, we were joined in Oban by Claudiana Colomitro of Queen's University, who introduced her work on preventing burnout and promoting well-being for educational developers. In her workshop, Claudiana outlined Parker and Hyatt's 4 dimensions of well-being in the workplace, namely work satisfaction, organisational respect for the employee, employee satisfaction, and intrusion of work into private life. We also explored the PERMA model, which proposes 5 elements of happiness and fulfilment: positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. We were invited to consider what could be done within these elements to support ourselves and what could be done at institutional level. It was striking, to me at least, that most of the strategies we discussed were personal rather than institutional. It sometimes feels like the institution is such an immovable object that it becomes absolved of responsibility. Some of the personal tactics we shared included finding support through our own networks, recognising our accomplishments, being clear on what sustains us, reclaiming autonomy and agency, and speaking truth to power. Now I'm going to share some specific thoughts from members of the SHED network. I've been joined in this handshake by 4 colleagues from across Scotland. I will speak for them, but quote them directly where possible. They are Daphne, Rosemary, Heather, and Richard. Between us, we're going to explore 4 themes related to well-being. They are work satisfaction, slowness and contemplation, burnout, and SHED as a community. Let's start with our first theme, work satisfaction. Heather writes that her job satisfaction is very good indeed. Teaching people how to teach is very rewarding. Her participants are very appreciative, and it's clear that they've been helped in their further career progression. Richard finds particular pleasure in supervising doctoral research, suggesting the focus for research, supporting the field work, and enabling the student to produce an excellent thesis. Engaging with colleagues also provides a sense of purpose and balance. Richard observes that making time for colleagues, and in particular our non-academic colleagues, is essential. He values having a sense of purpose, particularly in his collaborative work with students and colleagues. Let's move on to our next theme, slowness and contemplation. Following Berg and Seeger's book, we deliberated on how slow educational development might be enacted at the institutional level in Scotland. The slow concept really resonated with us, and in fact it became the subject of a virtual reading group meeting in December. Daphne has been using slowness in her practice for several years, encouraging lecturers to read not just widely about learning and teaching, but also to read slowly. she wants them to pay careful attention to a text, word by word, in order to work out what it really means for them. In a recent blog post, Daphne writes about Lectio Divina, a traditional contemplative reading practice that originated in ancient Greece and that became associated with monastic scholarship. Again, the reader engages in slow, deliberate reading. There's a growing body of evidence pointing to the value of Lectio Divina for university students, and Daphne is interested in what it has to offer academics who want to develop their teaching. Yes, contemporary academic development is largely secular and is considered to be rational and evidence-based, whereas Lectio Divina is ancient, spiritual, and mysterious. Daphne acknowledges that it can be risky to take elements of an unfamiliar tradition and transplant them in a different context. But in her experience, the potentially rich rewards are very much needed in what might be described as the impoverished environment of contemporary academia. In Daphne's blog post, which I'd encourage you to read, she identifies 5 characteristics of Lectio Divina that seem particularly relevant: presence, slowing down, embodied response, trust, and transformation. Time now for our third theme, burnout. Richard says that the demands on his time from students and university often leave him exhausted. With work apps on iPads and iPhones, there never seems to be any downtime from work in the evenings or weekends or on holiday. He's had to learn to say no, but that obviously is a challenge in itself. Heather tries to make a point of not answering emails in the evening, which means, by her own admission, that she is way behind on answering emails. In fact, email-related burnout is a big problem across our network, but one that generally gets waved away as too big to address. After all, it's a problem across academia and across Western capitalism. But if educational developers can't cautiously navigate away from a corrosive emailing culture, well, then who can? We know that when email took over as the dominant form of workplace communication, it didn't make communication more efficient. It simply created more unnecessary communication. Some recent research has proposed that communicating via a barrage of emails is an act of professional aggression, whether inside office hours or not. The reason? Well, it appears that the act of sending many emails reduces stress and exhaustion. On the other hand, receiving the barrage, having to deal with those emails, and lacking the habits of self-discipline required to manage this, conversely causes stress and exhaustion. Email burnout is just one of many things that tests our resilience. And resilience is a word we hear more and more within our universities. As an historian, I couldn't resist looking more closely at the word itself. Before the Renaissance, if you were resiling, you were returning to a previously held opinion, with the negative connotation of being fickle. Then material scientists began to use the word to describe the ability to absorb energy under stress. Only in the 19th century did it start to mean the ability to recover from bad things. Of course, when materials or people are exposed to too much stress, there's a chance they might deform permanently. Nowadays, we use the word resilience to imply more positive characteristics: robustness, adaptability, fluidity, elasticity. Thus, we have a work culture that celebrates resilience. But I wonder if this makes individual the problems which are in fact structural and systemic. Perhaps resilient employees are those who are most likely to tolerate unreasonable working conditions and outrageous demands. And perhaps this leaves us at higher risk of burnout. So how can we alleviate this a little? Maybe some time in the shed can help. Heather says that Shed is a wonderful community and that being able to share practice and seek advice from colleagues is amazing. Rosemary recalls that when she first attended Shed as a guest speaker, she was welcomed into the group and was inspired by the sense of community, as well as the passion for educational development and education in general. It's now one of the highlights of her work. Every meeting she attends provides more inspiration and also reassurance that the challenges she faces are certainly shared by us all. She values the support, knowledge, enthusiasm and camaraderie that being part of Shed brings. When higher education is under such pressure, it really helps to have a community like Shed that reminds you to keep things real and to focus on the educational mission of our universities.
Some wonderful testimonials from the Shed community there, showing that time in the Shed really is well spent. That's all from us. We really hope that reaching out to our Canadian colleagues will expand our network and will encourage sharing of related practice around recognising our mutual accomplishments in reclaiming autonomy and agency and speaking truth to power. Thank you for watching.